Okay, it's happening. We're going down. I'm like, God, I'm not going to ask you to save me. I'm going to ask you to make it quick. Time stopped.
This is Francis. He's the founder of a leadership speaker series called Imagine Talks. He's also a motivational speaker at UC Berkeley and Stanford, is a leadership director for the Ms Asian Global Pageant, and is a video game designer. Oh yeah, and he also loves food.
Joining me at the Check Please table today, game designer Francis Kong.
I would eat that sauce on a flip-flop if it was given to me.
So I thought it would be a great idea if I introduced Francis to the Chinese food that I've spent more money on than I have for my tuition.
This is probably some of the best soup I've ever had.
Oh my god.
Yeah, easily.
Oh my.
Now this adorable man is the epitome of the type of guest I want to have on this show because he possesses one of the most unique attitudes towards life that I've ever seen.
I can't tell you when or how, but I will tell you for sure you're gonna die. That should not be a shock to anybody here. Don't focus on how you're gonna die, focus on how you're gonna live.
Now Francis claims that he gets this incredible lust for life from doing the aforementioned things that he loves for a living. That's why it's so crazy to know that he almost didn't.
My parents wanted me to become a doctor, I would say probably by the third trimester. My father's side of the family has 8 doctors. And at the age of 5, my dad pretty much told me, Francis, as far as I'm concerned, you have 2 choices in life. You're going to either be a physician or you're going to be a failure. Those are your 2 choices. You need to choose. At 5, I didn't know what a physician was, but I definitely knew what a failure was. So my whole life from the age of 5 to medical school was really focused on just one thing. But fast forward, ended up going to medical school. That was the year that the professors told us, this is the last time you guys will have any more breaks. After this, no more winter breaks, no more summer breaks, and most definitely, no more spring breaks. 2 of my friends in my class, we decided to try to have the most amazing spring break ever. We decided to go to Barcelona, Spain. That would be the day that actually would change my life forever. That's the day that I did become an airplane crash survivor. I remember sitting on the right side of the plane, looking at the right window, and I remember coming in for a landing, and then the plane flew to the very end of the runway and started to accelerate and pull straight back up in the sky again, never touching the ground. Everyone around me started freaking out, including me. And the intercom comes on, and the captain starts speaking. Prior to this, he was speaking Spanish, then he spoke English. Spanish, then English. This time, it was all Spanish. This guy had no time to translate this time. And you could tell there was a different pitch in his voice. I didn't understand anything he was saying. It was all Spanish, except one word he did repeat several times. Emergencia. And I was like, well, that can't be good. Everyone around me was doing one of 2 things. Everyone around me started to cry, or they started to pray. That's a bad sign. People started to point out the windows on both sides, so that made me look out my window. It looked like this kind of white, greenish smoke coming out of the wings of the plane. Hit the flight attendant button, she finally came over, I waved her down, and I was like, I'm so sorry to bother you, but no one here in this row speaks Spanish. We can tell there's an emergency going on, but can you tell us the details of what's going on? And she just looks at me and she says, the landing gears have failed. And I'm like, when you say failed, do you mean like not working at all? And she goes, there's nothing for the plane to land on. I'm like, okay. Well, that explains the crying and praying around me now. That makes sense. Why is there smoke coming out of the wings of the airplane? And she looks out, she goes, that's not smoke, that's fuel. Wait. You just told me we cannot land this plane. And now you're telling me you're dumping out the one thing keeping us airborne. And she goes, yes, it's protocol. We have to jettison the fuel to minimize the explosion and impact. And I remember the first thing that hit me as I was trying to process this was that on a plane that's going to crash, you actually have no say in it. I realized I could not run out, jump out. I'm locked into a sequence of events with everyone else on this plane. Whether we're ready for it or not, we're going to crash. That's just all there is to it. Okay, accepted. Then I started thinking, how did I get here? What decision did I make this morning put me on a plane that's going to crash into a country I'd never been to in my entire life? And I realized something. Every major choice I made in my life had one core common thread, and that was getting into medical school. And that's when it became so obvious to me that I actually never wanted to go to medical school. That choice has put me in this decision right now, and it's not even something I wanted to do in the first place. And I thought, this is your fault, Mom and Dad. Never have you even asked me once in my life, hey Francis, is there anything you want to do before we go down this really expensive, really demanding, really intensive journey of being a doctor? Not once. And something hit me really clearly, and I realized I wasn't on that plane because of my parents. I was on that plane because of myself. because I failed to take ownership and responsibility in my own life at all these different stages. And it was like this amazing epiphany just hit me. I realized if you don't take responsibility and ownership of your life, nothing else matters. Ironically, that whole sense of understanding happened around the same time as the engines of the plane died. Okay, it's happening. We're going down. But I think it really is the scariest thing I've seen in my life. From the very beginning to the very end of the runway, on both sides, as far as my eye could see, were nothing but just rows and rows and rows of fire trucks and paramedics waiting for us the entire length of the runway. And that's where everything clicked with me. And I was like, okay, I get it now. We were coming in so fast at that point that I did the only thing that I could do. I counted down, and I was like, 3, 2. That last second before impact is the most intense one of my life. It's very hard for me to describe because it was so surreal for me, but time stopped. It froze. And I gained absolute pure clarity of what was important in my life. I saw my mom, my dad, my little sister, and all my life mentors, and they were just like looking at me, like in a room, just looking at me. And in that moment, I actually realized I had a wish. Besides the wish of not being on the plane, I had a wish. And that wish was, I want to say just 3 things to these people. I want to tell them, number 1, that I love them all so very much. I love them more than anything else in the world. They were the most important and dear people to me. Number 2, I wish I had a chance to tell them, thank you. Thank you for everything you've ever done for me. Thank you for everything you've ever given to me. I didn't take any of that for granted, and I appreciate every second of that. And number 3, which I think was the most important one, was I wish I had one more time to say goodbye to everybody and tell them that I really thought I had more time here with you now, but I have to go now. And in that moment, I think I learned the most key question that a person's going to ask themselves in that last second of mortality. Am I happy and content with how I spent my time here? And if you can say yes to that, then you lived a life without fear and doubt. Fear and doubt is always there, but you didn't let it control you. You weren't afraid to make mistakes and learn and grow from that. And the version of yourself is something that you're very proud of who you saw. But if the answer to that question is no, then fear and doubt probably controlled so many of your choices in life, which means that you didn't let yourself grow as a person. And the version of yourself was someone that you weren't proud of, and even at some level, maybe even ashamed of, because you knew you could have been so much more if you just let yourself be that person. And I was in that second camp. I was not happy, and I was not content with how I spent my time. And that was it. We hit the ground. I said, please explode, please blow up. And I said that because I was so convinced that was the last period of the last word or the last sentence of the last chapter of my life. That was it. That was all you get, Francis. And I'm like, God, I'm not going to ask you to save me. I'm going to ask you to make it quick. I'm going to ask you to make it painless. But I came to a halt. The first thing I did was to check to see whether or not I was still alive and in one piece, and whether my friends were still with me at that point. Then we were quickly rushed off the plane, and I saw the landing gears come down. The back landing gears were down, but the front one was still missing underneath the front. And I don't know what happened exactly, I have to guess. The back landing gears came down enough to lock in place. The plane was able to at least try to do a tail landing, slam the nose of the plane into the runway, and plow into the asphalt all the way down there, trying to use that as a braking system. It stayed in one piece. Somehow everyone survived. Minor bumps and bruises. I remember taking 10 steps off to the side to get out of everyone's way. I got on my hands and knees and I literally kissed the ground. I got a second chance at life. I remember even hearing a voice in my head. It said, show me you're serious. I had no idea what it meant at that time, but I know what it means now. Here's your second chance, Francis. Don't mess this one up. Show me you're serious.